Hi everyone, hope you're well. Let's do the chanting straight away. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from their happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until psychic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. So now get yourself comfortable for some meditation practice. Maintain an inner smile if you have worries right now, some sort of anxiety even. No expectations, attachments, let them go. Just let them go, even if it's just for this period of short meditation practice. Okay? Fill yourself with friendship. Really appreciate yourself. Appreciate the fact that you get the chance to practice, and also appreciate the methods. Appreciate the Buddha giving these teachings and all of the masters throughout, from the time of the Buddha up to now, giving the teachings too. Really appreciate and respect that. Be grateful. So we can fill ourselves with appreciation and respect. As we initially will release the tension in the body. So bring your mind inside the body. And we'll start from the bottom of the body and work our way up and release the tension as you pass, or focus on different parts of the body. Release the tension from that part at that time. You can just do it with your mind, or you can utilize the out breath. So you take a deep in breath and then a long out breath and release the tension on the out breath. Or you can manipulate the body a little bit, stretch it a little bit. But once we get into the breath meditation and loving kindness meditation, don't do the stretching then. Try to keep your body really still for the time that we are meditating. So release the tension all around your feet. And the lower legs, all around your knees and upper legs. Your midsection, upper torso, all the way up to your shoulders. And down to the tips of your fingers. And to the top of your head. And now briefly scan your body once more, just to see if there's any leftover tension that you can release. Or if I've guided you through it too quickly, address those areas that you missed. And now let's bring the focus to the tip of the nose and follow the feeling of the breath, or place your mind on the feeling of the breath as you breathe in your nose all the way into your lungs and then back out your nose again. Breathing in, breathing out, anapanasati. Utilizing the four foundations of mindfulness. So mindfulness of the body, so our physicality, and of course breathing is part of that. And also the feeling of the breath physically, but also mentally, the feeling in the mind itself, and the activities of the mind, which also includes following the Buddha's instructions. So we're engaging all four foundations of mindfulness while we practice this, even though it appears that we're focusing only on the first one, but actually engaging all four. As mentioned last week and previous times too on occasions, there's possibly like 3 spots that you can really focus on the feeling of the breath as it passes these spots or these areas. That's the tip of the nose, and then past the chest area or the heart area, and then the abdomen or the stomach area. You breathe in, tip of your nose. As you're breathing the air in towards your lungs, goes past the chest, and then it enters the lungs. They fill with the air and expand, then compress as the air leaves them. And then, of course, on the way out again. So it starts on the way out, it starts from the abdomen, chest, tip of the nose. Just some extra points to help you keep focused seamlessly, hopefully, on the feeling of the breath as you breathe in and out. And another extra technique you can use as you do, or some of you do, always, sometimes even, and that is counting the breaths, breathing in, breathing out. That's one breath, and so on, so forth. Counting up to 10 and then back to 1 again. Of course, if you get distracted on the way to counting to 10, go back to 1 at that time. Breathing in, breathing out. That's all we have to do right now, and focus on the breath. As you do so, if thoughts arise or any mental activity arises, don't cling to it or grasp at it or even try to force it away or deny it. But by refocusing onto your breath, let it go naturally, peacefully, gently. And if your mind starts to become dull, then wake it up a little bit by refocusing on your breath more brightly. So let's practice like this in silence for a little bit. So now we can feel very pleased with ourselves and fill ourselves with universal loving kindness, just as we did at the start, appreciation and respect. And now, of course, we're going to share this loving kindness, but fill ourselves first. Utilizing the visualization technique of filling your whole being with the white light or nectar. Really feel it. In a sense, it's both cool and warm. Feels very nice. You are dropping everything. Letting go of the mental baggage. So leading into our loving kindness meditation today, we're going to do a really, really brief forgiveness meditation, which often precedes loving kindness meditation. This is to help us put down the mental baggage. Don't hold any grudges, things like that. Let it go. So being with yourself, with your whole being, of course, filled with this universal loving kindness too, already. You forgive yourself for whatever it is that you may have done in the past, whether through your body, your speech, or your mind, or all. And for what you didn't do that you think you should have done. So what you didn't do that you think you should have done, and what you did do that you think you shouldn't have done. In the past. Important to note that in the past, not here now. But our habit is to attach with attachment and aversion based on ignorance to these things, mental phenomena, experiences from the past. We bring it into the present. And you could say it colors, sort of flavors the present moment, even though it's already gone. So we can forgive ourselves for our past, the things that we should have done, that we feel we shouldn't have, the things that we didn't do that we think we should have. You can even imagine in your mind saying to yourself, even if you want, you can look in a mirror or imagine yourself in front of yourself. Be like a third party. And you can ask for forgiveness. You can say something like, I'm sorry to myself for the things that I did in the past or didn't do in the past, that I regret, have some sort of remorse for. I'm letting it go now. I'm asking you for forgiveness. And you can forgive yourself. Yes, I forgive myself. I am now free to move forward in life without hanging on to this mental baggage from the past. Like I said, we'll keep it really brief. Now you can visualize, just pick one person that you may have harmed in the past. Could be very subtle, very small harm, could be bigger harm, could be physical or emotional, other types of harm that you may have brought. Really be courageous in this practice. And remember, it's just mind practice here now. This may help you to actually really, really forgive everybody, forgive yourself, put down that mental baggage in your everyday life, or it will help. So now you can look at that person and say to them, I'm sorry for causing you harm in the past. Please forgive me. And they look at you with kindness and express their appreciation that you have apologized for bringing them harm in the past. And they say to you, yes, I forgive you. We are both now free to move forward in our lives without any guilty feelings, any remorse. Feel very happy. And now switch the visualization. Visualize someone in front of you that has brought you harm in the past. And they say to you with kindness, gentleness, I am sorry for bringing you harm in the past. Please forgive me. And you look at them with kindness and say, yes, thank you for apologizing for the harm you brought to me in the past. I do forgive you. We are now both free to move forward in our lives without hanging on to anything, hanging on to any of the negativities. Like I said, we keep it very brief. And now fill yourself with loving kindness again. Now that you've put down all mental baggage, there's actually more room for loving kindness too. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now overflows and radiates outwards, initially to your loved ones, family and friends, and fills them with the universal loving kindness too. Now also includes strangers and even those that you would regard as enemies, filling all of these people with the universal loving kindness in the form of the white light or nectar. Wishing that they're all happy and have the causes of happiness, that they're all free from suffering and the causes of suffering, that they are all peaceful. Now let's radiate this loving kindness out further and further distance-wise, initially around our immediate area. Of course, that could be just around your house, could be your area as in where your park is and the beach and things like that. Up to you. Extend this loving kindness to all of the living beings, not just humans. The living beings that live on the land, in the waters, fly through the air, whether they're born from wombs, eggs, moisture, or through transformation, no matter their size, big or small, short or tall, whether you can see them or not. Bring them all to mind and extend this universal loving kindness to them. And now gathering more momentum distance-wise, further, we radiate this loving kindness now throughout our whole state or county. And other states and counties throughout the whole country. And all of the countries throughout the world, initially those you have an affinity towards, also those that you're indifferent towards, and those that you may have some negative feelings towards. And have your loving kindness also pervade throughout all of the waterways, all of the oceans and so on, all the way down to the core of the earth and to the outermost atmosphere. And beyond this planet, throughout the whole solar system. Isn't it marvelous that this loving kindness is generated in your own mind and you're able to radiate it out further and further using the mind? You don't have to go to these places physically to have this loving kindness increase, eventually to become immeasurable. Throughout the whole galaxy and throughout the whole universe and beyond, until your loving kindness pervades throughout infinite space. So the loving kindness pervades throughout infinite space as well as you being here in this present moment. It's marvelous. Let's chant the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of Shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So today I thought we do a little bit more meditation, both the breath meditation, as well as including the forgiveness meditation with the loving kindness meditation. When I used to visit the prisons, or prison mainly in Australia, just the one, and or two actually, but the one regularly, and I used to teach that every time I visited. And even when I visited people in hospitals, which hasn't been recently, I used to encourage them to practice that along with the loving kindness meditation if they're going through whatever difficulties that they were going through health-wise. But I think it's something that you can do every day. I think loving kindness meditation you should do every day. And if so inclined, you should start with the forgiveness, even if it's only for a minute or two. It's actually quite helpful. And these types of meditations, you can utilize your creativity, your imagination more, with the visualization and so on, and the feeling, even if it's forced to begin with, eventually starts to become natural to do so. And then beyond sort of natural, you could say, beyond the conditioned natural, your mind eventually becomes absorbed totally with this loving kindness, with this openness, that forgiveness helps to create. Remember that forgiveness is part of generosity too, or the practice of generosity, and other aspects of the Dharma as well. Okay, so we are having some commentary or contemplation on interdependent origination, the 12 links, Paticca Samutpada. And we started it last week, as you remember. And so today what I do, I'm going to go over what we went over last week and give a little bit of commentary. And then, of course, when we're ready, it could be today or next week, then look at the rest of the article as well in detail and utilize the wisdom tools of hearing, contemplation, and meditation to absorb our mind with the teaching, with the understanding of the teaching. And so I really want you to memorize this, okay? I know at least one or two of you have already, because you've mentioned it to me quite some time ago. It's very good. And I'll share with you how I memorize formulas like this, okay? And this is something that I've been doing now for, a few decades, really. Not from school times, and not from just after school times, early 20s or whatever, but since I've really taken the Dharma studies really seriously and so on, okay? And that is to remember it in short form. So for instance, rather than the whole formula, you can just remember the key word or words, okay? So let's have a look at the first part. In its most complete formulation, interdependent origination is expressed in English as dependent on ignorance are karmic formations. Dependent on karmic formations is consciousness. Dependent on consciousness are name and form, or mentality and physicality. Dependent on name and form are the six sense bases. Dependent on the six sense bases is contact. Dependent on contact is feeling. Dependent on feeling is desire. Dependent on desire is clinging. Dependent on clinging is becoming. Dependent on becoming is birth. Dependent on birth is old age, sickness, death, sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, despair, and a whole great mass of suffering. So in this case, you can just learn ignorance. So that's number one, okay? Karmic formations, consciousness, name and form. By the way, name and form is you could say a nickname in this case for the five skandhas. The six senses or six sense bases, contact, feeling, desire, clinging, becoming, birth, death. You can just remember them like that. Okay, so this is cycle. Remember, this cycle happens over lifetimes, can happen over a sort of a longer period of time, can happen you can also say it's like a planet or a world or a universe comes under this as well, in a sense, okay? But also a moment to moment, okay? So even though we look at it from a point of view of ourselves and maybe the self of others, to break through this conceptual thinking, this dualistic way of thinking, but also we can see it at every moment is going through all of these 12 links. Okay, so think about that. I'll just say it to you again. Ignorance, karmic formations, consciousness, name and form, the 6 senses, contact, feeling, desire, clinging, becoming, birth, death. Or you can add old age and death if you want to that, the 12th link there. Okay, so just memorize it like that. And then later you can put the joining words, dependent on. It can actually be dependent on or conditioned by, So so that's how the samsara works. That's how we are continually being or existing in samsara, becoming this and becoming something else, constantly changing everything. So so if you think about it, that based on ignorance, previous life now, giving rise to karmic formations that we've created in that life, then leaving imprints on the consciousness, and then into this present life, this consciousness with the karma that we have, some of the karma ripens, creates the name and form. So the 5 skandhas come into play. The makeup of a living being, the form, the feeling, the thoughts, the impulses, the consciousness, okay? And then continuing on from that in this life, you could say, from name and form, the six senses arise or come from the physicality, the first 5 senses, and then the mind sense. Then from this mind sense, definitely the mind sense, but also the other ones come into play where there's a contact, okay? So you have, let's say, for instance, you have the eye sense and then something to see. There's a conscious moment there. That's the conscious contact that we're talking about here. Okay, so we have the senses. Without the consciousness, there's no experience, is it? Without the skandhas in the middle there, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, there's no personal experience. So everything is interdependent here as well. Then with the contact, there comes some sort of feeling, mental feeling of pleasure or pleasurable, unpleasant or neutral. Then, of course, there's some, from the feeling is desire. There's a desire to have or not to have. If you have a pleasant feeling that arises, tends to give rise to desire for, so attachment. And then, of course, the desire not to have, if you have something unpleasant, can give rise to this aversion. Then, of course, from there, that's just very subtle, then it becomes bigger. It becomes a clinging. You really start to cling to these things that you either want or don't want. The clinging, like I said, can be based on attachment or aversion. All of it based on ignorance, the first of the links, of course. Then, of course, you have from clinging is becoming. Becoming can also be known as existence. We continue the existence. So everything's becoming something else, even though we still have, let's say, for instance, our personal traits, our physicality kind of looks the same from moment to moment, but it is changing. It's becoming something else already. And the same with our mentality. In fact, the mind moves so much faster than the physical elements, physical atoms, for instance. The mind changes so much quicker, especially the untrained mind or the unenlightened mind, if you like. And so everything's becoming something else. Then, of course, it gives rise to some birth. Now, birth in this case could mean the next life. From the birth, of course, there's living, and then there's the aging, and then there's the dying, and then there's all of the other sufferings that are mentioned here, included as well, included the 5 skandhas suffering as well, because they are impermanent, have the nature of being unsatisfactory, have no self, though we think there's a self, we live like there's a self. And so this birth, of course, you can say once again, go back to little minute moments, gives rise to the next moment, doesn't it? Then that moment passes. But still we have the ignorance. So that once again, we go through the cycle again. All right, so I just wanted to mention that. And once again, I remind you, 12 links of dependent origination. Just look for the main word so you can memorize that word. Then you can fit all the other ones in there. So now, how to free ourselves. Okay, so this one I just mentioned to you deals with the arising of dukkha or suffering. The cessation of dukkha, suffering, is then addressed. So it's obviously with the ceasing of ignorance then that uproots all the other ones. So let's work hard to become wise, you know. You can do it. It's your true nature. Wisdom is your true nature. Compassion is your true nature. But we've so many lifetimes have fought against that, even if we don't know we have. With the ceasing of this ignorance, karmic formations cease. With the ceasing of karmic formations, consciousness ceases. With the ceasing of consciousness, name and form cease. With the ceasing of name and form, the 6 sense bases cease. With the ceasing of the 6 sense bases, contact ceases. With the ceasing of contact, feeling ceases. With the ceasing of feeling, desire ceases. With the ceasing of desire, clinging ceases. With the ceasing of clinging, becoming ceases. With the ceasing of becoming, birth ceases. With the ceasing of birth, old age, sickness, deaths, sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, despair, and a whole great mass of suffering come to cease. The whole great mass of suffering means the 5 skandhas, or the makeup of our living being. Okay. Therefore, with the ceasing of this ignorance, all suffering ceases. So without the first link, the others don't arise. I think that's marvelous. The Buddha's pointing out that this is, you know, you get to know this and then get to break through it. You know, yes, everything is dependent, but you can break through it and then it will cease. All of the suffering will cease. Okay, so I know that we've gone not that much more time to go, maybe 4 minutes. So I think maybe if you look at the class again, as well as, like I said before, print yourself a copy of these teachings so that you can refer to it, even if it's just putting it on your screen, save it on your computer or on your phone or whatever. And it's probably a week and a half ago that I put it on Facebook the last time, so you can access it quite easy. And then, or you can take a screenshot. No, it won't show up. Writing's too small. And then you can utilize the wisdom tools, you know, read it, contemplate it, and meditate on it. I will continue, utilize the last couple of minutes. Therefore, with the ceasing of this ignorance, all suffering ceases. So let's address the first part, okay? There are many forms of dependence mentioned in this analysis. It may be helpful to remember that dependent on or conditions does not necessarily mean creates. It's an interesting point, isn't it? I think some people from other philosophical traditions may utilize that word creates to kind of solidify their beliefs and things like that. But in Buddhism, we don't do that. We utilize this formula to break beyond our conceptual thinking, our dualistic way of thinking. For instance, we could say that walking is dependent on having legs. So think about that. Do the legs create the walking? No, we have to make an effort, but we need the legs to be able to walk. So that's what it means, dependent. The fact that we have, the fact that we want to walk, or if we want to walk, we must have legs. But the legs don't create the walking. That's a point. Or catching an airplane is dependent on getting to the airport on time. You can get to the airport on time, but that doesn't create you catching the plane. You've still got to make the extra effort to get on the plane. But if you don't get to the airport, you won't catch the plane. So catching the plane is dependent on getting to the airport. You get my point? So I think we leave it probably there for the minute, though I will try to do this one extra little example that I've got here. I rejoice in your goodness. I hope you've enjoyed today's class, and next week we continue onwards. Hopefully you are learning good things. Like I said, practice the 3 wisdom tools in your own time now, because today